Hey Outpost fans, welcome back to another Outpost After Show. Tonight we are breaking down episode 4, Strange Bedfellows. It's just Talon versus everyone tonight. Talon versus the Marshal, Talon versus the Lakiri, and Talon versus Garrett. We've got a lot to talk about, so stick around.
You're tuned in to Afterbuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
So many people after Talon in this episode. I feel for the girl. But welcome back, Outpost fans. We're back for another episode. I'm your host, Veronica Valencia. To my left,
I'm Talan.
We're back. The same twosome. We're fierce and we're here. We're ready. We're ready
We
to
need
go.
a twosome something, like the awesome twosome, the twosome through-some something.
You're creative. I'll leave you in charge of that.
The gruesome twosome.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, we were just listening to like drippy, bloody sound bites before this, so makes sense, right?
Yeah, that was our little secret.
Yeah,
We're supposed to
right. I
tell
just
the whole
told
world.
everybody. But yes, so coming up later in the show, we are talking Gwyn, we are talking the Mistress and the Worm, Janzo, Talon and the Beast, as well as we also conducted a Twitter poll asking you fans, who do you think would win in a fight, Talon and Garrett? And we've got those results coming up later in the show. But before we get to any of that, Taran, what was your overall thoughts of this episode?
This was by far the best episode.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. The one thing that I kind of wish we just got a little bit more of was the Lakiri and the Smith. And, you know, I was kind of hoping that this
I'm glad we
episode-
didn't, because it
You
set
did?
it up. Now I'm so interested in seeing what happens next week.
Yeah.
So now I want to know more. Actually, and another thing was when Janzo was like walking at the end, and I thought he was gonna get killed by the Lakiri.
I thought that's definitely where they were going
kinda
with
like
that.
set
yeah.
it up like, and she's looking for the Lakiri, and we don't know what he's really looking for, and because he had some pigeon shit on his
Yeah.
like jacket, and so
Yeah.
we didn't know what was going on, and then next thing you know, she
Mm-hmm.
ends up with the Lakiri, and I'm like, now I want to see more. It was actually a very, very fun, very exciting episode.
Yeah, I had that exact same theory. I thought that Talon and Janzo were going to meet up because they were both like, Talon was looking for the Lakiri, Janzo was looking for Talon because of obviously what Garrett had asked him to do later on in the episode.
That's what we thought.
That's what we thought, but that's not what we got. And so I was like, oh no, it's going to attack Janzo, but that was not the case. But before we get into that, we start off this episode with the fight between Talon and Garrett. And obviously we're going to talk so much about Talon fighting Garrett towards the end of our show. So let's get into let's talk about Gwyn. We learned a little bit more about Gwyn this episode, starting off when we find out that Marshal Withers and the Mistress of the Tavern are getting freaky behind the scenes. We kind of find that out, which was pretty surprising, but obviously Marshal Withers is still very bitter about Talon escaping his execution, and it's all because of Gwyn kind of working her father. So he's very bitter at Gwyn. He's very salty towards the commander. So he obviously kind of goes to the mistress and is like, what's his deal? And this is where we kind of get a little bit backstory on him and Gwyn with, you know, we find out that he was a commander who
He was the King's Guard.
He was the King's Guard,
father, Gwyn's father was the King's Guard, and was also, we knew, kind of was the one who betrayed the king by letting in the Prime Order who killed the king. And then because of that, he got a great commission in being the general of the post.
Yeah. What we mainly know is there was some kind of purge that happened, and he was a survivor of that purge. And in response to that, he got this great position where he gets to live very comfortably and kind of not really do much. And so, but because of that, we also learned from the mistress that what we assume was Gwyn's mom didn't like the whole outcome, and you know, is no longer
herself.
Yeah, she killed herself, unfortunately, and is no longer in the picture. And so the Marshal Withers kind of takes this as like interesting information as some things go. Gwyn has to have some dirty secrets on her father.
Well, Marshall's looking for whatever clue it is to figure out, why does Gwyn have power over her father in this manner? Because it was more, to him, it's more than just, oh, daddy's little girl. It was as if she outranked the father somehow. And I think that's what's going to play. I think she's going to end up being the king's daughter. And that was the whole arrangement, that the king sacrificed his life in order for his daughter to live. And so as everyone thinks the general is a traitor, the general is not a traitor. The general followed his king's order till this.
Interesting.
So, and that's why he's plotting to get the whole place back, which is another subplot. The show does have too many subplots, I think. That's one of the things I don't really specifically like, is because a lot of things are going on all simultaneously.
Yeah, you think you would kind of like maybe want to wrap just one little thing up before it goes on to another. I see where you're
Like
coming from that.
There's the plaguelings, there's the general, there's the Withers conflict, there's this Lucuri just walking around. There's who's the Blackbloods, who we've kind of dropped that storyline of who the Blackbloods are.
I mean, that's always lingering in the background.
Sure,
kind of.
sure. I mean, especially in the end of this one, it came out. But with Gwen's story is actually one of the stories that I actually really like a lot, because I like Gwen. Gwen is a brat, and you kind of like her being bratty, and she's got money, and she throws it around, and she's like this sweet, demure girl, but at the same time, you know, she's got this underlying hard-ass, badass waiting to come out. So the two of them together are very Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention. Obviously, yeah, she does come across as a spoiled brat, but it's funny that you mentioned that she has all this money, because that's something that we saw in this episode. She basically pays the mistress to get Talon out of working that night so they can go off and do their own thing. And I know Gwen, we discussed this last week, where Gwen doesn't seem to have had actual friends. She's always grown up with servants, from what it seems like. And so you can tell she's still getting used to kind of trying to have a genuine relationship. That part kind of made it seem like, it seems like she's almost buying Talon's friendship, basically, because she's just like, oh yeah, you have work, whatever, I'll get you out of it, kind of thing, because she can just flaunt what she's got. So I definitely think she's a work in progress. That's probably not how she intended it, obviously, but that's how I saw it. Like, there are going to be moments where she can come across as like she owns Talon, not she wants Talon's friendship.
But I also think there was a bit of, okay, so Gwen stood up to Talon a little, and she's like, hey, so you and Garrett hung out, you know, just to let you know. And then Talon's like, oh, I don't want to get it between you and your man. She's like, yeah, you don't want to, but like, she like G'd up on her a little. And so I think on one hand, I understand where you're coming from, but I've also seen that from people of privilege when they don't realize that they come from privilege. So it's not that Gwen means to act or come off that way. She doesn't know any other way to be. And that doesn't specifically excuse or justify her behavior, but it does make it so it's understandable. And you do understand where she's coming from. She's just a person of privilege. And she also thought she was going to win all this money, which they did. And so to her, it wasn't the purpose. Like, the purpose wasn't the money. She wasn't trying to flaunt her money. She was just like, that demeanor, that whatever, here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you that it's coming off in, I guess, the most innocent kind of way, in the sense that she doesn't know.
She doesn't know
that
better.
She's flaunting. Yeah, she doesn't know any better. This is her life. This is how she has grown up.
And thankfully, it's with Talon, because Talon has no use for her money, and it's not using Gwen in that way.
I also like seeing how Talon is enjoying it. She's not really in the first episode, or in last episode, when she was first brought into this world, she was a little bit hesitant because Gwen wanted to get rid of her clothes and give her a bath and all this stuff. And it was obviously a life of privilege that she wasn't used to. So even if it can come across to some viewers, as it did with me, that maybe Gwen is kind of buying Talon's friendship, it seems that Talon doesn't seem to mind. Like, she's enjoying another person's company.
Well, she's enjoying someone that doesn't have a hidden agenda or want anything from her. So they technically don't want anything from each other, but they at the same time want everything from each other. They're so different, and the concept of opposites attract, this is a perfect example of two opposites who attract very well. And there's an underlying rebelliousness in both of them. They both don't really take orders that well, even though they show it differently. They both don't really like people having power over them. They both aren't just in what we see, it seems to be a very male-dominated society, which mirrors our own, right? They both don't take shit from men. Like, they're both on that. They both like to kind of be in control. So they're both on that. They have that underlying connection. And then the way they display it outwardly is very differently. They do it and they go about it in different ways. So what Gwen does with money, Talon does with her knife.
Basically. And then we also kind of learned that Gwen grew up with a what was it? It wasn't a mistress. A governess. Oh my gosh. She grew up with a governess as put in charge by her father because her father wanted her to get some
The person
form.
we think is her father.
The person we think is her father. But he basically wanted her to have some type of higher education. So this governess basically looked out for Gwen and taught her all that she needs to know. And then we find out that this governess is still in the outpost. So of course, Marshall Withers goes to kind of interrogate her because he desperately wants to get something on the commander or some information as to what this weird relationship is between the two of them. Why she can manipulate him so easily. Which I also found interesting because when that initially happened, I think it was like 2 episodes ago, I just kind of initially thought it was he's looking out for her daughter. It's daddy's little girl, she's spoiled and can get her way. But then obviously, of course, Marshall Withers is thinking there's more to it. Like she's blackmailing him. She's got dirt on him or something.
Well, it also comes out that it's not normal for someone, even a general, to have a daughter that is this educated. And that's one of the things that confuses Marshall Withers to try to investigate more. It's not a very common thing. And so that's part of the reason. And it's also why I believe she's royalty, that she comes from the royal family and the general's very aware of this.
It would make a lot of sense because of just how they are in their positions. For example, in this episode when we just talked about how the commander kind of just slid into his position. Like he just kind of got it he basically just got it. It was very
a commission
easy
for her. It seems to be a commission for him and what he did for the Prime Order. So what he did was betray his king and allow easy access for the Prime Order. And because of that, he was allowed a commission, which is his general position.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the things the governess tells the marshal is that, Gwen would clean her own room as if that was something very not normal. The fact that she would clean her room. And then again, that sparks something else. It's like one spark, she had a governess.
Why would she clean her own room?
Then, another spark, and why would she clean her
Why
own
would
room?
she have all these servants and then clean her own room?
Exactly. Because as we've seen, Gwen has all these servants that do things for her, so why would she clean her own room? So clearly we're getting into some backstory as to what Gwen's relationship exactly is with the commander. And Marshall Withers is out to get it. But
he is determined.
He is determined. And I mean, we'll see. I'm excited to see where that goes. Before we move on, Taran has a really great announcement for all of you.
Sure. Hey, AfterBuzzers, our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there is no network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about pesky notifications, don't be, because they're optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did so in the comments and we'll thank you on air. For now, thanks for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of Talk TV.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we know we talk a lot about YouTube, and for some of you, you're watching us live on YouTube, so thank you for that. But we also want to acknowledge everyone who listens to us on iTunes, because you can also go there, download our show, listen to us wherever. So while you're there, please give us a review and give us a rating, because we always remember everyone who is watching on both YouTube and iTunes.
And make sure to comment below. We always check the comments.
Definitely.
And try to respond and talk. Thanks for the conversation, guys.
We've done that in the past quite a bit. We see your comments and we give you shout outs because we like where your ideas are going with the show. We like your predictions. So let's go on to another big thing that happened this episode, which was also the kind of battle between the mistress of the tavern and the worm. This one was kind of interesting because in the past episodes we've seen the worm kind of be ruthless. I mean, he beheaded the son of the tavern mistress and sent it to
Bill.
her.
Yeah.
He beheaded Bill. And so we've seen him be ruthless, but in this episode, we basically see that the mistress, because she has a secret relationship with the marshal, is like, I need you to arrest this guy because he did this thing. And of course, because Marshall is very much and very strict about the law, he will do it. And so we kind of see them take the
Well, I
worm
think it's
away.
more than just strict about the law. I feel like the marshal really actually likes the mistress. And we saw that when he leans in to kiss her and she kind of just gets up.
Yeah.
Like, he actually really kind of is fond of her and likes her. And this is a real, even though it's a relationship of necessity, it's a real relationship for him. And she likes his position and using him, but she also kind of likes him back.
I definitely see the she is using him aspect part of it. I do think there probably is some kind of deep interest in him, like way deep down, but it's definitely more so him than her, I feel.
Yeah, he likes her on a surface level way more, but she likes him. She would get mad if he was seeing someone else. She would get annoyed. She likes power. She likes being the alpha, and so does he, but he kind of bends to her alpha, and so it plays out. And they have very similar interests and things, and they're both, even though he's very by the book in a lot of things, his book, but it's a book, and she's off book in a lot of things, which is off the book. But they have a common ground together as well. So it's a very Gwen and Talon-esque relationship of two opposites who attract, but they attract because of a common underlying foundation that's very similar.
And it's basically a relationship where she can get things from him, as she does in this episode where, you know, she says, go get the worm, arrest him, and he does. And he's taken into this chamber where she tortures him. Kind of tortures him. Like, it's not anything gruesome that we see, but I found that kind of interesting because in the last two episodes he came off very ruthless, like, I'm not going to give you my supplier, like, I'm taking all the calypsum from you, and then of course, you know, beheading her son. And yet we see him in this position and he's very scared. I mean,
I don't think
as
so.
he
He was actually very good at it. He didn't give up information until all the way at the end. And had Janzo not figured out how he was getting the messages across to the supplier, he had made a great deal. Like, he called her bluff. He wouldn't give her the name. He was being tortured and hurt in whatever manner, and it looked like he was getting strapped. So, and he still held his ground until he thought he had a clear deal. Said, the only thing that keeps me alive is the fact that I have this name, so let's make a deal. Made the deal, and then Janzo came in and ruined that and undermined his deal. But I felt like he didn't give in to the torture. He let her have the knife to his throat, knowing he would have to go through pain and come right back, and she'd come back in, and he didn't give up the name.
No, you're right. So in that sense, he did very well. He wasn't going to give up the name, but I also wonder if that's because maybe he knows that she herself is not the violent person. That's why she had her sons go out and do her dirty work, because she did have the knife to his throat, but she didn't do anything that first time.
I don't think she's above violence at all. She just knew she has a button, so she pushes the button. The button is her son, and the button does it. But I don't think she's above reproach of violence, or she wouldn't have shanked him or cut him or sliced him if she just wanted this information more than she wanted his life. Mm-hmm. And once she had the information, she had no longer a need for his life. And she clearly revels in the violence. So she stayed inside to watch the beheading, and she enjoyed it so much, and she did it so callously. Mm-hmm. And I do not think she's not a non-violent person. She is definitely a violent person. She just had someone stronger who would carry out her orders. So, and that's why I thought he actually held his ground way longer than most people would have.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, because that was going to be my next question going off of that was, I do agree with you in that I don't think she's above violence, but is she above conflicting violence herself? Or is it just a
No,
convenience?
yeah, it was just convenient. Like,
because she has people
the
doing
mob
it for
boss
her.
isn't the one who shoots people. The mob boss has his people that go out, his enforcers, and they do it. She's a boss. Like, she's not going to dirty her own hands unless she has to. But that doesn't mean she's above dirtying her own hands. She's definitely killed and plotted to get to where she is. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
She killed a guy just for a supply after she could have clearly just got it at cost. And she still killed him anyway.
And you did mention Janzo, who I want to talk about real quick for a little bit. We had mentioned this in the beginning, where it kind of seemed like in the storytelling they were alluding to the fact that maybe Talon and Janzo were going to meet up and something was going to happen with the Lakiri demon that Talon is hunting. But I felt bad for Janzo this episode because he seemed to get, I mean, he's kind of being used altogether because of his position with the tavern's mistress, but it seemed this episode he was just kind of getting used. Like, he saw, Gwyn buying Talon for the night, so then he had to kind of pick up everything that she was supposed to do, and then they're still investigating the plaguelings and the virus, and so Garrett just kind of comes and dumps another body off and is expecting results. And then, of course, when he discovers that the worm uses pigeons as his supplier, he feels immediate guilt because he knows that he sold this man out, and he knows because of that he's going to be executed. And so I felt bad because that Janzo probably wanted a more lawful solution to that. He didn't want what he said to cause this man to get executed.
Sure. And that says a lot about you personally and your empathy for people. But for me, Janzo's the consummate victim because he wants to be, right? So he likes feeling important. And so in his importance, he gets used for these things. Remember, he volunteers for a lot of these things. And he loves being the guy who helps. He didn't have to go and investigate this pigeon mystery. He did it on his own. He is working at the bar. He didn't have Talon there 2 days ago. So now he has the luxury of Talon, and it was removed for a night. Nothing was out of the ordinary of what Janzo was doing. In fact, Janzo uses his talent and then likes to play the moral high ground. At the same time, he's also a person who works at this tavern for whatever the situation. And in this manner, his victimhood is a choice. He doesn't have to keep placating to everybody. His complacency allows for all of this to happen, right? He could simply just say no.
And one of the things that, again, in him being used is that Garrett asks him to basically spy on Talon. And I really hope that he doesn't end up doing that, because I think as we see, Janzo is the one consistent person at the outpost that is supportive of Talon.
Sure.
Like, every now and then you can see like the flirtationship between Garrett and Talon, but then of course he'll scold her for keeping Gwyn out all night. Marshall obviously hates her. Gwyn, they, as you kind of mentioned, like, they'll have their fun, but then she'll also scold, like, don't take my man kind of thing. Janzo is the one person in the outpost that has consistently been supportive of her.
Because he's the underdog and now he sees another underdog. But let's not look at Janzo as if he's not going to spy. He is. Because that's what Janzo's storyline is that he is the consummate victim. So he'll always do things. And Janzo's a perfect example of the path to hell is paved in good intentions. He always has a good intention, and yet somehow his good intention leads to something that may not be so good, as we saw in the case of the worm, right? And that's just how it plays out, and it's fine. But I can't feel bad for Janzo. He has an agenda too. Let's not act like he doesn't have a friend zone agenda with Talon. He plays it every now and then. It'll come out, oh, Talon, I'm your friend, and then you'd be like, oh, so you like funny guys? Knock, knock. Like, he's right there waiting to do this. And the world kind of just shits on him too. The bird just like crapped right on his shirt. And then he does this, oh, I'm awkwardly eccentric, and he goes after it. But he kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah. No, I really like that insight, because that is obviously something that, in watching this episode, I didn't think about. So that's a really great perspective.
He
that
never
you just
said,
offered.
hey, Talon, really, you're not going to work because any other person who doesn't play the consummate victim would have simply been like, Talon, please, look how busy it is tonight. Can you please not take tonight off? You didn't plan it. But he didn't say anything. He just looked and like walked the other way because that's what he wants. That's how he feels empowered, is by being the I'm powerless person. There are people in the world that we know that are like that all the time. And it seems like all these bad things happen to him. But at some point, it's not everything else. It's you.
I'm hoping
You're
later,
attracting that energy.
I'm hoping that later on in the series, he will have a changing moment in his character where
He
that
will.
kind of stops.
Of course, there's something will happen and he stands up to something, or something just it reminds me of Neville in Harry Potter, where it's like, oh, you're that. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's Neville. Neville comes through, you know? So it's one of those.
I think that storyline might come through with this Plagueling investigation that he's doing.
Maybe.
He's going to be the one that probably brings the best insight to what's going on.
Yeah, but he's a woe is me character. Woe is me, and then, you know.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I really liked what you had to say about that. Do you have any final thoughts on the episode?
Sure. I also think that it's very interesting that Talon flirts a lot. She flirts with Garrett. She flirts with Janzo. In some ways, she not necessarily flirts, but definitely keeps going back to the Smith and asking things. She blames him, which is a little passive aggressive. She constantly
I would blame him too, because he has knowledge that he's not just giving
He's very
her.
vague, definitely, but you don't have to keep going back to him if that's the case, right? So she loves sharing that blame, which is a very interesting concept. She's like, well, it's also on your hands, instead of being like, look, I need you to help me. Be specific, right? So it's like a little conflict of communication that's going on. And trust me, the Smith is vague. He just says things, you know, but maybe it's not. Like, okay, buddy, then what is it? Can you just tell me, help me help you, you know?
Yep.
So that's a very interesting storyline that's breaking. Also with the LaCouri, we learned something very new, is that the LaCouri doesn't listen to Talon because of control. It's because they know that they're the Blackbloods are the only ones that can free them. So that was a very interesting point, perspective, and a new piece of information that we didn't have before. And also we learned that the LaCouri want to come back, and there's a lot of them, and they were trapped into this dimension by the Blackbloods. And also, the one thing we need to talk is Talon keeps getting killed almost every episode. Like,
right?
Why does Talon keep getting stabbed? Like, can we not stab Talon?
She's clearly up against forces that she just has never had to deal with. Like, even with Toru Magmore, he's been, you know, he kills for a living. These are just forces.
Killed. Past tense.
Killed.
Dead.
You're right. These are just forces that she's not, at this point, capable of handling, I feel.
Every day. So, like, every day. No wonder she didn't want to take a bath. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I'm going to be in this bath and someone's going to just throw in a hair dryer or something. I'm going to die. Like, every day she just keeps getting stabbed and killed. And she did get stabbed by the LaCouri. The LaCouri just stabbed her and walked away.
I think that's a great segue into our special segment, because at the beginning of this episode, we saw she was sparring with Garrett.
Yeah.
And actually, we conducted a poll on Twitter asking the Outpost fans who you thought would win in a fight, whether it be... Yep, there we go. Who would win in a fight, whether it be Talon or Garrett? And the results are in.
Overwhelming.
Who do you...
I mean, overwhelmingly, I'm sure people pick Talon. Talon has clearly shown a propensity to be a much better fighter, even though we know that Garrett is an expert swordsman and that he's looked and beloved by his other soldiers as this leader. He's got the looks. And we did talk about that in this episode. It's like, oh, he's good looking and he's charming. And so because of that, he's presumptuous and douchey or whatever. But clearly Talon would win. And I'm sure the poll reflected that.
And with 83%, they did vote Talon.
Who voted Garrett? Like, who thought Garrett would win this one?
There's good arguments for both sides. To what you said, Garrett is a gifted swordsman. He's been fighting in the, you know, with the guard for a long time. But Talon, I feel, is ruthless. She doesn't have a lot of like she doesn't feel guilty.
She has no
Garrett
chill,
would.
and she does feel guilty. She just has no chill when it comes to winning. She's very competitive. More importantly, what color is Garrett's blood? It's red. Well, then you're gonna lose, buddy. Blackblood is gonna win.
Exactly. So not only has she had to survive her entire life and develop these fighting skills where it's either kill or be killed, and of course Garrett was in the guard where he fights in groups, so people are helping him out, but she is also a Blackblood, and that was something that Doug Pascoe on Twitter had mentioned. He said, I have faith in Garrett Spears, but demon supercharged Talon is a wild card.
Yeah, I mean, she's a Blackblood. She's gonna win, and on top of that, we've seen her take out like 8 soldiers at one time. There's no way Garrett's taking out 8 people.
Exactly. Not only does she have these survival skills to fight, but she also has this magic power to summon demons, which if she can control them, she could definitely use them to her advantage in combat.
But I mean, in a fair combat with just
combat.
swords, I'm still going with Talon. Talon maybe, because the argument can always be made, well, the strongest man will be stronger than the strongest woman. Sure, but Talon's also stealthy. She's clever. She's smart. She's obviously well-trained. And training wins a lot of times, especially in equal opponents. Now, in real life, stronger person tends to beat training if the person's very strong and the person's like fairly trained. You have to be extremely trained, and the other person has to be extremely not trained in order training to win over strength. But Talon also comes off very strong. She's agile. She's got a lot of things going for her in a fight. It's not like they're arm wrestling and it's like, who won? Well, Garrett might have won an arm wrestle.
Yep.
But in hand-to-hand combat, Talon's clearly the black belt of this. She's winning.
Clearly, Garrett also felt the same way because he does have a comment that he mentions that she is the stronger opponent. But also, the actor who plays Garrett, Jake Stormone, also agrees Talon would beat him in a fight.
Yeah, Jake knows.
Jake knows.
Yeah.
We all want to have faith in Garrett and support him a little bit because we know he's been this captain and this guard his whole life. But just in overall circumstances, Talon would win hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I really like that. And the fans seem to agree that Talon would win. So obviously, as you had mentioned, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of plot. There's a lot of subplots going on that they keep introducing this season. So there is going to be a lot there's going to be a lot on our mind of what could possibly happen for next episode. So with that being said, I think this is a great time to get into some predictions.
And now, your Afterbuzz TV predictions.
I know I say this at the end of every episode because at the end of every episode, I'm always hoping that the next episode will give us just a little bit more with the Smith, the Lakiri, and the Blackbloods. Like, that is just what I really want to know at this point. So again, I'm going to say it. Next episode, there's going to be something. And we kind of have to because this demon is still on the loose. So we definitely have to know that. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about the commander, especially because in the next preview, the Marshal is obviously out for Talon, and Talon and Gwyn are connected. So whatever happens to Talon will also happen to Gwyn. So I think we're going to learn a little bit more about their relationship because he's going to have to step in to save his daughter. And then, you know, I have some faith in Jan, so I'm hoping that he'll figure out a little bit more about the Plaguelings since, you know, Garrett dumped off another body for him to examine. What do you think?
I think that Talon's actually dead, and this time it's done.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
I'm kidding.
You think? Yep.
No, I think Talon comes back to life. Shocker. I think the big prediction is that Gwen's going to be the daughter of the king, and that's a whole plot that we're going to watch unfold. I think that Garrett has a couple more tricks up his sleeve that we're not going to be aware of, and that's how they save Talon from certain death. I think that the Prime Order is going to play a big part because we saw them in the last episode and we did not see them in this episode. So they're going to come back in the next episode, and that's going to cause a huge power vacuum and a new conflict and a new subplot as if we need more. And I think that the Lakiri is going to kill while Talon's being held, which pretty much absolves her of crimes. But now she's going to be responsible for the liqueur. So I'm really very excited to see what happens next episode. And next week, I think we might surprise everyone and have a very special guest on the show. Join us.
Ooh, I do like what I'm hearing there. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I really like the idea that Gwyn might be a true royal. Hopefully that's true, because that would be interesting. Do you have any final thoughts?
Pretty much keep watching.
Just keep watching. Just keep seeing what they're going to give us week after week after week. All right, guys. Well, that is all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Taran, where can people find you on the internet?
At I am Taran all across the board. That's IAMTEHRAN. Find me, tweet me, Instagram me, story me, Facebook me, Tumble me, Reddit me, whatever you need to do. I'll be there. The Bathrobe Heartthrob. I am Taran.
MySpace?
On MySpace.
Yeah, don't forget my MySpace. Please add me on my
He's bringing
MySpace is
that
coming
back.
back. MySpace is coming back, okay? Tom was my first friend.
Oh, yeah, he was. Are you currently doing any other shows that people can catch you on?
Catch me on a lot of shows.
A lot of shows. All right. And I'm Veronica Valenti. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at itsmeveronica_B. You can also catch me on the Attack on Titan After Show Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, as well as the Castle Rock After Show Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Until then, thank you so much for tuning into the Outpost After Show. We look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Afterbuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the Afterbuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterbuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of Afterbuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.